Well, isn't that beautiful? But I don't want to forget too much, especially if I'm on the podium supposed to speak. We had a good discussion this morning. What we talked about was this first meeting, we talked about terms for religion, spirituality, what some of them mean to us, which ones are a little bit outdated. Maybe we need to retire them right now and bring them back in 200 years when they can have a new meaning. But you know that's the way it is with words, isn't it? They can trigger something in you, remind you of something. And if it's something that's not good, then we don't want to use it, do we? We certainly don't want to use it. And we talked about religion, spirituality, New Age movements, New Thought, what to call something that's going to be the movement now. We're all evolving, and so many of us are at a place now, and all of us are, or we wouldn't be here, to where we're open. We're open to having a deeper relationship with the divine, and whatever you want to call that. It's called Christ consciousness. We spoke of heart-centered consciousness this morning. And after all, if we could go back to the actual words that were spoken by the man Jesus that came to the earth, we would find that everything he spoke about was heart-centered. He talked about the heart, love, kindness, joy, compassion, all of those things. And so we're certainly not turning away from those teachings, but we want to embrace more. We talked about the fact that science has so many answers for us, and we're so appreciative of that, aren't we? My goodness, so appreciative. And I know that I like to be in that space, and I mentioned that this morning, between where science and mystery come together. Because we don't want to be fooled with thinking things that don't work for us. We don't want to have theories thrown out there that have no basis of truth. But we do want to sense things with our heart, and that's where the mystery comes in. There's always a place between reason and passion, science and mystery. There's always a place where the left brain and the right brain can come together. After all, we have them both, don't we? And we need to use them both to have a really full life. What I'm talking about this morning is a little bit of an extension on what we talked about earlier, and that is that curiosity as a divine gift is a powerful thought. We've talked about many attributes here. We talk about them regularly. Many of them were spoken by the founders of Unity, that some of the powers and the principles, the attributes that they mentioned, and certainly they are love and strength and power, enthusiasm, zeal, so many different words, and yes, indeed, they are attributes of the divine. But it's come to me of late that the word curiosity really has had deep meaning to me. And I just wanted to share a few of my thoughts with you today. We know that when we read the daily word, whether we do it every day like our friend Larry Vaughn does, every single day he reads the daily word, and he has most of his adult life, and he shares it with many others. We're glad you do that, Larry. He didn't want me to mention him. I can see that by the look on his face. He'll forgive me, though. It's okay. But it did make me wonder. See, I was being curious. So I thought, well, I don't remember the word curiosity being a daily word. I'm sure it has, but it just didn't spark a recognition in me. So I looked up online out of curiosity, and I pulled up from January the 9th, 1972, the daily word, curiosity. Let me be divinely curious and curious about the divine. I like that. Curious about the divine. It goes on to say, if we were to think about inner qualities that are essential to happy, successful living, we might overlook an important one, curiosity. I think that is one that's overlooked, isn't it? And one that I don't think I've ever spoken about here. I may have mentioned the word in passing, but I do believe that our curiosity is a divine gift. And I'm going to go on and explain that in a moment. It might be contrary to some of the teachings that were handed down to us, right? We've had a lot of teachings handed down to us, haven't we? That were the beliefs of others, and they were given to us as children. They may have taken, and they may not have. They may have taken with you, and then at some point you decided to find your own. You were curious, and you decided to find out for yourself, to explore a little bit, and that's good. Exploring is good. But one of the teachings is that original sin started because Eve, of course it was Eve, it couldn't have been Adam, right? Of course it wouldn't have been Adam. It was Eve that picked the apple and took a bite of it, of course. And we know that these cultural stories came down to us from whatever part of the world they were in, that they were just myths that were told from one civilization to another, and they were carried on, maybe told in a little bit different way. But that it was just their way, I think, of saying that, people on the earth, those ancients, they were trying to decide, where do I fit in? Where did I come from? Why do bad things happen? Why are there earthquakes? Why, can we really depend on the sun? Or is it going to go black one of these days? Or they really didn't know. They were trying to find their way in a world and find things that worked for them. And so in their curiosity, they were just struggling to know. So they created some cultural stories, and of course that was the original sin. And then if you really examine that really didn't make sense, did it? If it was something you really looked at, it didn't take you long to say, well, that just didn't quite make sense to me. And then you had the story of Lot's wife turning into a pillar of salt. Once again, the woman, of course. They were leaving from the town of Sodom and Gomorrah, where all sorts of evil was taking place. And of course, she looked back. And it was just the stories were created not with no ill intent. It wasn't ill intent that created the stories. They were created by people who were trying to find their way in the world, what worked and what didn't. And so they were creating cultural stories. Many and many, many of them have been handed down to us. And now, through our curiosity, our research, our looking for something else, we can decide, can't we, what we want to believe. So I do believe that our curiosity is a divine gift. It expands our horizons. It's even fundamental to the human race surviving. Had it not been for many, many discoveries, we wouldn't be here today, would we? I suspect we would not. Those that have discovered so many different things, penicillin. And if you're one of those that's allergic to it, I'm sorry, but it saved a lot of lives. Saved a lot of lives. So it was that divine spark of curiosity, wanting to know more. That comes from God. It's good. It's a good trait. Continue doing that. Continue looking at your life, discovering why. You'll break out of a rut. If you'll be willing and look at why, you might say, my goodness, I've been driving in this rut for 100 years. How am I going to get out of it? Well, you got to be willing to look at it. How did I create this? What happened? And so you start looking. If you're willing, you start looking, and then you're curious. You'll look a little bit more, and the next thing you know, you've uncovered some ways that you can improve, you can achieve your full potential. And actually, that's what we came here to do, wasn't it? To achieve our full potential, to recognize the God that is within us. There's a man named Mark Hyde, in his article, Curiosity is the Secret to a Happy Life. He went on to make a lot of good points. He said he points out the challenge of sustaining curiosity when childhood is past. And the problem with that is that as we age, research has shown that our curiosity just keeps declining and declining and declining until we might even reach a stage before passing of total apathy. Is that what you want? I don't. I want to be curious. So the next time you find yourself being apathetic, not caring, not really wanting to research anything, not wanting to learn something more, challenge yourself. Who knows? It may be the cure they're looking for dementia, Alzheimer's, all these different things. It may be the way out. And I know our friend Barbara works crossword puzzles. And many other people do too. And that's another way. Expand your curiosity. You may not know one word. You may get a difficult crossword puzzle and you don't know one thing on it. Research a little bit and find one word, and the next thing you know, you'll find another and another and another. And curiosity is like that. It will lead you to something more, something exciting, something passionate even. Curiosity is actually beneficial. The same article that I was referring to a moment ago, research has shown that if we are curious, we're much more joyful, we're happier, we're much more excited about life. Isn't that good? Curiosity is good. Curiosity. It expands you. Have you ever heard of the Galileo effect? You may have. You'll know when I mention it exactly what it is. Galileo, as we know, used a telescope to observe our sun and the cosmos and concluded that the then prevailing perspective that placed the earth as the center of the universe was false. He concluded instead that we were part of a solar system revolving around the sun and not the center of the universe at all. Oh my goodness. Well, now listen. That was in the 1700s, and that was the time of the Roman Inquisitions. And you didn't want to say something heretical like that. And only because he had been a bit respected prior to that was he not sent to the gallows. But he was allowed to live, but he was never allowed to leave prison again through the remainder of his life. Why? Because of his curiosity. And we do know that curiosity has been frowned upon because let's say there's an organization that wants to keep control over you. They don't want you to be curious, do they? They want to keep hold of you. So if you're curious, you're going to find a way out, and they don't want that. We want freedom of thought, but at that time, that was not allowed. So in that paper that I was referring to, there were so many benefits of our curiosity and what it can do for us. It even helps our health, our mental health, our wholeness, our enthusiasm for life, all those good things that will help us reach our highest potential. Does anybody remember the teachings of a woman named Byron Katie? Byron Katie? And she's a new spirituality teacher, leader, New Thought. And I'm believing it was in the 90s, maybe a little earlier, maybe 1988 or so. She had tried everything. She was desperate. She was an addict. She couldn't control her life. She couldn't find happiness for even 5 seconds, much less throughout the day. She was so depressed, she wanted to end her life. She found that nothing worked. So she found herself having been placed in a halfway house in an attic. And in this attic, she was laying on the floor. And her epiphany occurred one morning. She woke up, and she didn't remember anything about where she was or what had happened to her. All she knew was that her life had been misery up to that point, and she didn't know why. She couldn't find a way out. So she said that when she woke up, there was a ray of light shining on her, and she noticed there was a cockroach crawling across her leg. Nice visual, huh? It got her attention, but she wasn't in fear or anything else. She all of a sudden found herself with a knowing that she had not known previously. And that was if she would start to question her life, if she would start to question some beliefs that she held about who she was, what potential she had, whether she had any innate good within her at all, or whether there was any potential for her to even live another day. All of a sudden it occurred to her there were some really, really simple questions she could ask out of curiosity, and it could change her life. And the first one she started to realize that was the most important one was, why do I believe what I believe? Why do I believe that, and how do I know that's true? For instance, Why do I have the religious beliefs that I have that have been handed down to me? Someone might have been taught that if they haven't been saved, they're going to hell. And they feel like there's no hope for them. Let's say that's the belief, and we want to hold that up to the light. So she realized that that may not have been the specific thing she was looking at that moment, but it was a critical one, that whatever we believe is what is creating our lives for us, because those beliefs create our thoughts. And until we change our belief, we're really not going to have much luck changing our thoughts, are we? We may think the Grim Reaper is right around the corner. We may believe that. But we can change that belief any time we want to. And what she suggested was such an easy method. It's easy to, whether you do all 4 of her steps or you just take the first 2, it's really important, and it takes a sense of curiosity. She said, just objectively, take this thought that you're having, this belief. Like for her, my life is miserable and it's never going to improve. She kept repeating that over and over and over again. I can't change my life. This is just the way my life is. It's always been this way. It's never going to change. And so she took that belief, that thought, and held it up to the light and said, she held it up for intuition to say, is this truth? And when she really thought about it and looked at it and discerned this question, she said, no, that's not truth. Where did that belief come from? Where did I believe that my life was a mess and it was going to continue to be that way? How can I change that belief? How can I change that right now? What could I believe instead that would make me feel better? And she changed it immediately and just turned it exactly around and said, I can change my life. I can improve my life every moment with every thought. And I can change my belief system right now. And she did. Now, this woman has gone on to create workshops and programs and has written a book, at least one, probably more, based upon this curiosity. Can I change the way I think? And can I change the way I believe? And she found that she could. So I think that if we look at it from the light that she did, if we look at it from the light of all the others that have gone before us, all those brave men and women that went before us, all of them, we can see that they chose not to believe whatever the standard thought was at the time. They decided to use their curiosity to allow them to find something deeper, something broader, something higher. And we can use it every day in our lives. The simplest way we can use it, and we talk about this every week, is when we find ourselves in a challenging situation. And we look at it and we'll say, my goodness, from our human mind, we'll say, wow, that looks like there's no peaceful way out of this. I can't see anything where I could get out of this mess. Stop yourself right there. Stop right there. Pause. Go within for a moment. Center yourself and say, I could see peace instead of this. And right then and right there, just claim the most benevolent outcome. We talked about that last week when we talked about signs and synchronicities, and when you are willing to see them, when you are willing to be open-minded, you're willing to realize there's a better way. You're willing to give up your victim consciousness and decide that you are a creator just like everyone else on this earth. And you were given that creative spark. The next thing you know, if you will start to do that and start to be open and realize that there is a higher good, there's a divine flow, you know what? I can align myself with that. And that's the thing you do when you stop and you quit looking at, oh boy, this is bad right here, right now, and claim something better. Claim a higher thought, a higher perspective. You may not know what's going to come, but be curious to see. I'm always curious now because I've done it enough. And that's what happens. If you'll take one of these practices and you use them enough, you'll build up the muscle. And each time your trust will get a little bit stronger and stronger and stronger. And so when I'll see something that's just a big mess, and I'll say, wait a minute, don't get caught up in that. Wait a minute, just stop. And pray for the most benevolent outcome. Align yourself with that, and the next thing you know, a benevolent outcome arises. So I just suggest that we stay creative, we stay curious, and take a bite of that apple if you want to. And if you're walking away from Sodom and Gomorrah, have the courage to look back. Who knows what wisdom you might gain. I just thank you for being curious enough to finding unity, to finding if it can make a big difference in your life. I think it can. Thank you for your time.